A brutal attack on a council member of a Virginia city.
38-year-old Lee Vogler is an elected official in Danville, Virginia. Police say the suspect entered Vogler's office, where he works at a local magazine, confronted him, and doused him in flammable liquid. Both men then left the building, and the suspect set Vogler on fire. His condition isn't immediately known. The suspect, 29-year-old Shotzi Michael Buck Hayes of Danville, is in police custody. Vogler has served on the Danville City Council for more than 12 years and is currently serving his fourth term. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Texas lawmakers starting to question Kerr County officials over their preparedness and response to the July 4th floods that killed at least 136 people. Lawmakers have filed bills to address improving emergency communications and providing additional funding for affected areas. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is an America Matters Media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Vote for me and I'll set you free.
Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Come together.
Or the Mr. Constitution program. Wow, good to be here. America Matters Media, and we are on KPGF, FM 93.7, AM 1060, ZakiRadio.com, ZakiRadio.com. Go there, and you'll get like 4 different possibilities. Hit one of those. Hit it live when you're watching or listening at 11 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays or Thursdays. This is Wednesdays. I'm on with Warhamster, and then I'm right here on Thursdays with my solo program. It's great to be here. ZakiRadio.com, America Matters Media, affiliate stations, Salem Media, the list goes on and on and on. All righty. And for those of you who are not familiar with me, I am Mr. Constitution. I'm known as a constitutional expert, I guess. And so, and it's funny, I get all the time, oh, so you're a lawyer. No, that's why I understand the Constitution. And we'll get into that a little bit today. So we've got a lot of stories. Yeah, I'm fascinated by what I just heard on the news break on before I came on about the Virginia City council member being doused in fuel and then lit on fire. I'm going to guess it's probably a personal grief. That's typically when these people really go bananas. But then again, you never know. So I won't have comment about that one until I learn a little more. But what I do know a lot about is our U.S. Constitution and some of the things going on. And so recently, a federal judge, once again, this is a third one since June, that has struck down President Trump's definition of birthright citizenship. A third inferior court federal judge just strike down his definition. And in June, understand, in June, the United States Supreme Court, so this is the top court at the federal level, so the inferior courts are supposed to respect and follow the lead of the Supreme Court. So therefore, if they do something that's in violation or against the United States Supreme Court, then they are committing maladministration of office. When they violate the Constitution, it's maladministration of office as well. And so we've got this inferior court saying, hey, birthright citizenship can't do that. And in this particular case, the reasoning was that the anchor babies, the children of illegal aliens who Trump is saying are not citizens automatically by being born on American soil, they should be deported with their parents, so they don't get the full jurisdiction. They don't get the full benefits, the immunities and privileges of being a citizen because they're not citizens. And the argument by certain states, I bet you can guess which states, they're all blue. And the argument by these states is that, well, wait a second, if they're not citizens, then we can't give them the benefits for lower class or impoverished children, situations. So they getting free medical, free this, whatever. Then they don't get that, and it's messing with our budget. Therefore, the courts can rule on it. This is the argument by the states because it's more local. No, you're dictating, once again, micromanaging the president's job. And once again, universal injunction, Supreme Court last June said, can't do that. The courts are not there to micromanage the executive branch or dictate policy either. That is not the role of the courts. The role of the courts from the very beginning, Constitution, is to apply the law to the cases they hear. This idea of judicial review, this idea of reviewing the law and then validating it or invalidating it is completely unconstitutional. It's not their job. Now, that said, this whole thing revolves around, we're told, the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause. I remember one time I was out at a location watching a football game in a group, and one of the members of the group says, so you're a constitutional expert, huh? I said, yeah. I says, well, there's one thing we need to change. That Citizenship Clause, 14th Amendment that allows birthright citizenship, we need to get rid of that. It's not what it says. Birthright citizenship is not in the Constitution. The Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment does not confirm the definition of birthright citizenship, which states that a person born in the United States on the soil, regardless of who they were born to, no matter who it was, if they're born American soil, they're automatically a citizen, they're automatically a natural born citizen. It's all just given to them because they're born on the soil. In fact, it's a ridiculous idea. And it's an idea that you don't see in the rest of the world. Born on American soil, you're not automatically a citizen. Now, we have seen a few exceptions that our opponents will recognize. For example, if you have a couple of diplomats, and ambassadors, and they're attached to a foreign embassy in the United States, and the couple is there, and they have their baby in the United States, that baby is not a United States citizen. It's a citizen of the country of which the ambassadors represent, because that's where their allegiance is to. That's who they are. They are, whatever country it is. That's their citizenship. Child's too young to decide their citizenship. Now, some will say, well, international law says they have dual citizenship. United States doesn't recognize dual citizenship. Well, yeah, we got dual citizens in the United States. There's a bunch of them in Congress. That's true. But the United States law, U.S. law, does not recognize dual citizenship. Other countries might. International law might. The United States, technically, you could be a dual citizen in the United States, but the United States is not going to recognize the foreign citizenship. They're only going to recognize your United States citizenship, and your dual citizenship is invalid. My wife became a citizen in 2007. She's an immigrant. And when she gave the oath, when she signed the paperwork, there is a provision in there that's very important. You must renounce your foreign citizenship. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Barbecue, the Butcher's Kitchen, would like to thank every customer for your loyalty and continued support through these challenging times. Call for takeout and delivery of rib tips, brisket, ahi, tuna, roasted veggies, and much more. Barbecue's open from 11 to 7, Monday through Saturday, and delivers hot food safe and healthy. Call 499-5855 for details. 499-5855 Barbecue, as featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives. Get real. Get into Barbecue Reno.
At A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, we've been accomplishing happy feet for over 30 years.
We offer a various range of shoe styles and sizes for both men and women. From all-season shoes and orthotics to work boots and safety shoes, our professional and reliable staff possesses the knowledge to help you find the proper shoes to fit your needs. Hard to fit? Hard to find?
A Proper Fit Footwear is here to give our customers happy feet. We make people aware of potential foot problems as we're sizing their feet. suggesting the right arch support and guiding them to the proper shoes for their needs.
Stop by a Proper Fit Footwear at 4001 South Virginia Street in the Reno Town Mall today and allow the owner Mike Jones and our fabulous staff to find the perfect pair of shoes tailored to your specific needs.
A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, the home of Happy Feet, where comfort and your feet meet.
Reno's Veterans Guest House is the home away from home that provides temporary overnight lodging for veterans or family members receiving medical care in the Reno area, some from hundreds of miles away, like veteran Joy Brown.
I'm a Navy veteran, and I go quite often due to my service-connected disabilities, and it gives me a place to stay because there's no way I can drive back and forth.
Veterans Guest House receives no government money. It's privately supported by people like you.
Please support the guest house. Thank you.
Find out how you can help at veteransguesthouse.org.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
And welcome back to Mr. Constitution Radio. I am Douglas Vegas, Mr. Constitution. So I was so into what I was talking about, I almost missed my break there. And I'm normally really good about that because this is such an important issue. This idea that the 14th Amendment's citizenship clause supports birthright citizenship is false. This is not what it says. A person born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a citizen of the United States and the state in which they reside. This is the 14th Amendment citizenship clause. And you'll notice a person born or naturalized and it's a second requirement. Now, understand the founding fathers wanted to avoid divided allegiances. That's the reason why, as I was mentioning before the break started, that you have to renounce the citizenship of the country you have come from to be a citizen of the United States. It was a big deal with the founding fathers. Part of the reason is because of the Tories. The Tories were persons born in the colonies and the United States later, who still had allegiance to the British crown. So when the Revolutionary War ended, because the Tories, they took arms against the Patriots. The Tories joined the Hessians and the British forces against the Patriots who were fighting for American independence. When the war was over, most of them fled the country, either to Canada or back to Britain. And the idea in the Constitutional Convention was, hey, man, we don't want foreign influence affecting our government, sabotaging our government, infiltrating and undermining our government from within. So first of all, being a citizen is a big deal. You need to be a citizen of America and no other country. And natural born citizenship in Article 2 meant being the child of two persons born on that are American citizens, even if they're naturalized citizens, just as long as both of your parents are citizens at the time of your birth. That's what a natural born citizen was supposed to be. That's what was designed to avoid the pitfalls of divided loyalty. And so when Senator Trumbull and Senator Howard in their committee in 1866 is writing the citizenship clause for the 14th Amendment following the war between the states, and understand the reason the Congress said, hey, we need a citizenship clause originally, the main reason was because they didn't want there to be any questions about the citizenship of the newly emancipated slaves and their children, and specifically their children. If we are going to expect citizens to be treated equally under the law, that they cannot lose their life, liberty, or property without due process, that citizens will be treated equally and they will all have the same access to the immunities and privileges of being a citizen, then there needs to be a citizenship clause to make sure that these newly emancipated slaves and their children are seen as citizens. So the citizenship clauses are being written. But Trumbull and Howard recognizes that once you put this citizenship clause in there, it's not just going to be for former slaves and their children. That the citizenship clause is going to be applied as the rules regarding citizenship across the board. It's going to be seen as the provision in the Constitution for citizenship. Citizenship is mentioned in the Constitution prior, but the breakdown of what makes one a citizen is not. Immigration and the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1790, 1797, 1798. Those were, the establishment of what makes a citizen. They explained it. They defined it. As a matter of fact, this in the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1790, natural-born citizen is defined too, as someone born of citizen parents, plural. So it is understood what a citizen was and how it was defined, but it wasn't in the Constitution. It wasn't laid out in the Constitution. So if we're going to lay out a clause in the Constitution saying this is what defines a citizen, it's going to go beyond just the slaves, former slaves, emancipated slaves, and their children. It's going to be used across the board. So they wanted to make sure they wrote it in such a way that it would be understood in that manner. And so that's why they wrote it the way they wrote it. They said, hey, if you're born on American soil and subject to jurisdiction thereof, you're a citizen. What do you mean by subject to the jurisdiction thereof? Congress asked these senators as they gave congressional testimony to defend what they wrote in the citizenship clause. And what they meant, and they said what they meant was that and subject to the jurisdiction thereof means full allegiance, full jurisdiction. If you're not a citizen, you don't have full jurisdiction, like serving on juries, like voting. Full jurisdiction includes those things. If you're not a citizen, it doesn't include those things. And so, well, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And so they go, okay, fine. And Trumbull and Howard in different testimonies said essentially the same thing. Said, if you're born on American soil, but you're an Indian not taxed, you're not automatically a citizen. You need to go through the process. You need to go through the immigration, the paperwork, all of that, because you're still a member of a tribe. So even though you're born in American soil, because you're a member of a tribe, you don't have allegiance to this country. Your allegiance is to the tribe. And if you're a child born here of aliens or foreigners or diplomats or ambassadors or other foreign consuls and ministers, you're not a citizen. Because because you're just born here, you can't decide what your allegiance is to. You're not going to decide what your citizenship or what you want is. So you are dependent on what your parents' allegiances are. And if your parents are from a foreign country and they're not immigrating, they are still subject to a foreign power. You're not a citizen at the time of your birth, because your parents are subject to a foreign power. They don't have allegiance to the United States. And they were drawing from the Civil Rights Act of 1866. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 was the language that said children born of persons subject to a foreign power are not citizens. The law is on the books. Birthright citizenship, therefore, is not in the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment. The Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment, if you do something beyond just plain text reading and then using your own biases to determine what it's defined as the courts are doing today, but if you do the research, you look into the original intent, you read the congressional record, you see that it does not support birthright citizenship. So I get into these discussions with people. They say, "Well, yeah, but the 1898, Wong Kim Ark case supports it." First of all, courts can't make law. I don't care what they decided in that court case. Law is made by Congress, and the law has to be in pursuance of the Constitution. Otherwise, it's not valid law. But let's talk about the 1898 Wong Kim Ark case for a second. Wong Kim Ark, born in San Francisco, Chinese heritage, parents were originally from China. At the time, Chinese-born people could not become American citizens. It was against the law. So his parents did the next best thing they could do. They became permanent residents, green card. They did what they could to have as much jurisdiction in the United States as possible. And the court case, then the parents got deported, and that they wanted to get rid of the boy who was a young adult. He says, hey, I was born in the United States, therefore I'm a citizen. He's the one that said, I was born on the soil, so therefore I'm a citizen. The complainant said, I was born on American soil, therefore I am a citizen. The ruling did not say that. The ruling said, you were born on American soil and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That was satisfied by your parents being permanent residents, because that's the best they could do, at the time of your birth. They took some type of action. They went through some type of process to make sure they showed some kind of allegiance, some type of attachment, some kind of pursuance of immigrating and leaving behind their old allegiances. Therefore, because that second part, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, is satisfied, you're a citizen, Mr. Wong Kim Ark. So even though they try to use that as an argument, the ones that support the definition of birthright citizenship, even that's invalid. Not only because courts can't make law, but that's not what the court said anyway. The job of the President of the United States is to execute the laws of the United States. It says so in Article 2. To faithfully execute the laws of the United States. That's his job. It is not the court's job to micromanage that duty. If he is operating in an unconstitutional manner, there are checks. Congress can defund his activities. They can impeach him. The people can vote him out in the next election. And even then, the people originally weren't even the ones voting in the president. Electoral college, people voted for electors. The state legislatures appointed electors, and the electors voted for president, but that's beside the point. So we have no law on the books that supports the definition of birthright citizenship being proclaimed by the left. We have no constitutional provision supporting the argument of birthright citizenship as defined by the left. We have one law and the Constitution supporting, if you're born on American soil and your parents are subject to a foreign power, you're not a citizen. President Trump is in the right. He's following it properly. He's acting constitutional. Let's take a break. When we come back, let's talk about Obama and immunity. Don't go anywhere.
Cracks in the pavement, broken roads, voices lost where the cold wind blows. Shadows stretch across the empty halls. Time to rise, tear down these walls, fix the system.
Fighter for California, and that's why I'm dangerous to them. We the people must take back control of our lives, our freedoms, our government.
Fight, fight, fight!
We can turn California red again.
With action, with a movement.
We are just getting started.
I guess I'm back. Those breaks go pretty quick, and I don't get my intro music. One of these days, we'll get that all worked out, and I'll play my intro music. But that way I know I'm there. But yeah, welcome to the show. Welcome back. If you missed the beginning, you can always go to ZakiRadio.com, click one of those four, find the show, watch it later. If you want to watch it live, 11 a.m. on Thursdays, ZakiRadio.com. Hit the live, boom, you've got the show. I'm going to be here every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific on America Matters Media, Zaki Radio, and affiliate stations, wherever they may be, one of them being in Reno. All right, so now, we know about the Russia hoax. From day one, I knew it was a bunch of junk. I knew that there was something wrong there. First of all, Putin, KGB guy, would love to resurrect the Soviet Union, is not going to prefer Trump over Hillary. It's ridiculous on its face. Trump is going to stand against what he believes in, what Putin wants to do. The weaker of the two on foreign policy would be Hillary Clinton. The one who's closest in his ideological beliefs would be Hillary Clinton. So it would make sense, first of all, that if Putin wanted anybody to win, it was Hillary Clinton. And according to intelligence, he believed she was going to win. Everyone believed she was going to win. Why? Because the media said so and the polls said so, even though they were all manipulated and not necessarily telling the truth. And it got to the point where these people were believing their own baloney. They were lying. They're being deceptive to try to convince Americans to vote for Hillary. But she was not ahead in the polls. Trump was. But they couldn't admit that. They had to discourage you from voting. Well, it's in the bag. She's the inevitable heir. There's no way he can win. He's just a billionaire, a TV star on The Apprentice. That's it. No chance. All bow down to Hillary Clinton. Except that wasn't the truth. They had created, let's say, an atmosphere of she's inevitable. She is the next ruler of America. She's going to finish what Obama started. And so when Trump won, they couldn't say, well, we were wrong. They couldn't say, oh, we were lying about the polls. They had to stick with their narrative. No, she was inevitable. She was the shoo-in. We had everything saying she was going to win. Therefore, something must have been, there must have been a cheat or something. Now, Russia, remember the Great Reset, and they wanted to work with Russia and all that right after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And back when Russia was part of the Soviet Union, was leading the Soviet Union, the Democrats always wanted to work with the Russians and all that. See, Russia had done something unforgivable. They'd gotten rid of communism. So now the Democrat Party loves China. And therefore, but everybody knows that Russia is our longtime enemy. So what better way to smear the new president than to say he's colluding with the longtime enemy, Russia, Vladimir Putin, that KGB guy. So that's what they did. But then the problem is the intelligence community, because they had planned for this. They had already had it in the works that they were going to use this, win, lose, or draw, so that Trump would never run again. And the intelligence assessment was Russia is not capable of it, much less desiring of a Trump win. So we have Tulsi Gabbard releasing evidence that, well, Barack Obama said, no. We need your assessment to fit the narrative. Make it so. And Brennan and Comey went to work. Now, once they went to work to change the narrative, the assessment to fit the narrative, should I say, then the Russia collusion thing got going. Now there's new evidence coming out that Hillary Clinton was at the beginning of this. This is what we need to do. She was dictating the narrative, dictating that's what it should be. Obama facilitated it by ordering the intelligence community to change their assessment, but it was Hillary that got things started. I can't be beat by this guy. I can't be shown as a loser. And this email scandal is really messing up my campaign. We need to do what we can to delegitimize Trump. So they're all in on it. From the very beginning, I've been saying, hey, man, the handcuffs and the orange jumpsuits need to start being handed out. But it doesn't happen instantaneously. It takes time. You got to build the case. You got to have the evidence. We're building the evidence. We're building the case. Now, here's the question. If everything is what I think it is, the evidence is what I believe it to be, and the truth is what I've always believed it to be, then there's no doubt in my mind that Brennan, the CIA director at the time, Comey, James Comey, the FBI director at the time, Clapper, the National Intelligence Director, they should all be in handcuffs. They should all be prosecuted, charged, prosecuted, and convicted. But what about Obama? I can see Hillary in handcuffs. Matter of fact, July 4th of 2016, I was a part of a 4th of July parade in Temecula, California, and I was holding up a Don't Tread on Me flag in one hand and a Hillary for Prison sign with the other. I was the most popular part of the parade. After one person complained, and Temecula passed now what everybody calls the Gibbs rule. No more political speech during the parade. Of course, they allow all the woke stuff, but you know. But anyway, so she hopefully she winds up in prison behind bars. But what about Obama? Remember, the courts recently said, hey, the president has immunity. And the way the Democrats described it, well, he can just get away with anything. President murdered someone. Hey, he's got immunity. You know, they got ridiculous with it. Okay, then if that's the case, their argument, then Obama has immunity. Now, what the Supreme Court said was, well, you don't just have immunity. Your immunity has to tie into your presidential duties. If what you did is tied to your duties as president of the United States, you have immunity. If it's not tied to your official duties as president, it's unofficial. You're out on the golf course during your personal time. You go pee on a bush, and now you're guilty. You're not. That's not a presidential duty, right? Okay, so Obama, first of all, was it was the collusion, Russia collusion actions he took in line with his official duties as president? No, it's maladministration of office. One. But let's say they argue, well, he still has immunity. And the Constitution is clear about it. President can be impeached for crimes or maladministration, but if it's a criminal act and they are convicted by the Senate, then they can be prosecuted in the civilian courts, charged, convicted, and suffer the penalty of law. But it has to be something that they were charged and convicted of as president through the impeachment process. So if that is the truth, which I believe it to be, Obama then is still immune, right? Wrong. Here's why. The Russia collusion is a part of a much larger conspiracy. Lawfare, the Mar-a-Lago raid, you stack it all up, the January 6th thing, all of it is a part of a broader conspiracy against Trump. So that does two things. A, you can prosecute, you can go to court in any of the places that's a part of that conspiracy. The conspiracy didn't only happen in Washington, D.C. So as we saw with the lawfare and with the January 6th attacks against the people, patriots who were there on January 6th, and it was all a bunch of garbage. You're drawing a jury from a pool of 90% Democrat population. It don't have to be in Washington, D.C. The Mar-a-Lago raid was in Florida. It could be in Florida for the case. First of all. Second of all, it's an ongoing conspiracy. It hasn't ended. It is continuing, and President Obama, no longer President of the United States, is continuing to cover it up after leaving office. So therefore, he is guilty of continuing to participate in the conspiracy outside of the presidency of the United States. It is no longer his official presidential duties that are at question here. He's a civilian. He's a former president, and he continues to participate in the cover-up that is this conspiracy against Donald J. Trump. Therefore, he can't claim presidential immunity. He can't claim he's untouchable. The scandal-free president is full of scandals. He thinks he's immune. He thinks he can't be touched. The Democrats think that their first black president, God, cannot be touched. And the fact is, his term in office is over. He's an ex-president. Okay, he still gets a Secret Service. That's about all he gets. The immunity went bye-bye. And he continues to participate in the conspiracy. Therefore, he can be prosecuted. He can be charged, prosecuted, tried, convicted, and jailed. It is the law of the land. So now I wonder if him and Clapper and Brennan and Comey and Hillary Clinton, I wonder if they'd all go to the same facility. I guess Hillary would go to a women's facility. Of course, with Obama, Michelle, I think, was more manly than him, so maybe he would wind up in the women's prison. I don't know. But anyway, so that's the tale of the tape here. That is what this is all about. That, my friends, is the story. Obama can be prosecuted. Obama can be put in an orange jumpsuit. Obama can be put behind bars. Trump did a great video regarding this. They are guilty. They've been guilty from day one. This is what the left does. They act criminally. They rig elections. They rig your perception of everything. They use the media. They collude with the media. I hope media people wind up going to jail for this. The collusion between media and the Democrat Party while in government, that's a violation of the First Amendment. Freedom of the press means that the press is independent and the government's not dictating anything. All right, we're going to take a break. When we go to break, listen carefully, pay attention, come back in 2 minutes because we got more just for you right here on the Mr. Constitution Radio. Don't go anywhere.
This isn't just the story of a national.
My name is Leo Zaki, and I was born and raised in California. My family's been in California for over 100 years. In 1928, my great-grandfather started Zaki Farms here in Los Angeles, and it became the largest poultry company on the West Coast. We also became the largest privately owned employer in the state of California. Zaki Farms was my life. I started at the bottom, and I worked my way all the way up to becoming vice president. I know what hard work is. I put in the time. I've done it. In California, from growing up to California today, 2 different places. But what happened to California? Things keep getting worse. I'm running for governor because California is my home. I'm coming in with common sense solutions to clean up California. Political corruption is what's holding California back. The politicians have created these problems. When I'm elected governor, on day 1, the first 5 things I'm going after are drought, homelessness, crime, education, and political corruption. I'm Leo Zaki, and I'm running for governor in California.
All right, welcome back. Mr. Constitution Radio, Zaki Radio, ZakiRadio.com, America Matters Media, and of course, all over the web and the internet, web, internet, / same thing, and the terrestrial radio stations around the country. Don't forget that I am on all the time. I swear, I got so many programs I'm a part of or that I perform. It's funny. DouglasVGibbs.com is your home for all of that. But so we'll see. Thursday, right now, we're on ZakiRadio.com. Wednesday, the day before, I'm also on Zaki Radio, but it's with my good friend, the War Hamster, Brady. Yeah, same time, 11 a.m. Pacific. Fridays, I just got picked up for the Patriot Soapbox Network. It's an online network. Fridays from 2 to 4 Pacific, 5 to 7 Eastern. Saturdays, KMET 1490 AM in the Los Angeles Riverside Market at 1 o'clock Pacific time. San Diego, KPRZ, K-Praise Christian Station in San Diego. KCBQ, The Answer San Diego, Salem Media. I'm on 8 p.m. Pacific on both of those stations. KCBQ.com, KPRZ.com to listen live, or on any of the podcast platforms. Just type in Mr. Constitution Hour by Douglas V. Gibbs. And then let's see, Sunday nights I'm on Patriot Soapbox with my friend Alan on his show for the Republic, and then on Tuesdays, I don't have anything on Mondays yet. On Tuesdays, MrConstitution.com, that's MR-Constitution.com, MR-Constitution.com. You go to his Rumble channel, you listen live, 3:30 p.m. Pacific, or you just find the shows on his site, on his page that says Learn the Constitution. And I'm going through the Constitution line by line on that. Online Constitution class. I'm thinking about doing the same on Mondays on my own channels. We'll see. All right, so there's a lot going on, and, it's funny because one of the things that the left is interesting, it's all about a redistribution of wealth, everything they do, in government or privately. And they don't seem to learn that every time you apply socialistic, anti-American strategies, it always ends up as a loss of money, loss of freedom, loss of economic prosperity, and a little bit more piece of destroying the American way. So the latest case of chasing Karl Marx involves Delta Airlines. And they have this idea. Now, they say it's good for ticket prices, good for the consumer. But what it really turns out to be is a play to be social engineers with your wallet. The plan is to use artificial intelligence to do it. According to the New York Post, Delta plans to let AI, think about this for a second, let AI, artificial intelligence, set ticket prices on 1% of its flights based on what a customer is willing to pay, with the goal of expanding that model to 20% of domestic flights by year's end. What they're saying basically is the ones in the middle, they'll leave alone. But the people who can pay more and the people who can only needs to pay less, they're going to adjust using AI, 20%. That's 20% of their flyers. 80% of their flyers are people like you and I. We're the middle class. We're not wealthy. We're not in the ghetto. We're somewhere in between, and we can afford a basic ticket price, or at least we think we can if we need to fly. But boy, those people that are down in the lower level, that's kind of expensive for them, so we'll bring down their price. But don't worry, it'll be paid for by the more expensive people. We'll raise their prices because they're able to. On the surface, for the average American out there, the average normal critter wandering the streets of America, this sounds like some type of neat innovation, progress, efficiency. But if you dig deeper, here's what you find. It's the same old leftist playbook. Redistribution of wealth dressed up in a digital tuxedo. Now let me be clear about this. This isn't about helping travelers. It never was. It's about punishing success. Delta's AI will analyze your income, spending habits, your digital footprint to decide whether you should pay more. Not based on the value of the seat, but based on your ability to afford it. That's not capitalism, that's communism with a search algorithm. This is Karl Marx in action. This is the same flawed logic that says that if you've worked hard, saved, to climb the ladder, you should subsidize those who haven't. It's the economic equivalent of enabling narcissists, rewarding irresponsibility while penalizing discipline. And it kills the very thing that drives people to improve their lives, incentive. You want proof that this model fails? How about Carnival Cruises? Did you hear about this? They had slashed their prices so low on certain ships, to make cruising accessible for, the lower classes. What happened? The ships, those ships with those extra lower price, they turned into floating frat houses, loud music, trashed cabins, zero respect for fellow travelers. And they became nicknamed ghetto cruises. Why? Because when you give something away, it loses its value, and so does the experience. Delta's AI pricing scheme is a digital redistribution engine. It's not about fairness. It's about control. It's about using data to enforce a socialist model where the productive pay more so that the unproductive can pay less. And let me tell you, that model fails every time. Well, Doug, don't you have a heart? Those poor people, they don't get going. Then make more. Move up the ladder. And I know it's tough. I used to live in a very difficult place. I was living in a small apartment surrounded by noise and all kinds of ridiculous stuff. And I worked hard, and I moved up in the world. We all can do it. History proves that those redistribution of wealth models fail every time, and pulling yourself up by the bootstraps works every time. Economics proves it. Common sense proves it. What we need to do is return to individualism, personal responsibility. Take responsibility for your actions and the consequences that come along with it. The idea is that you earn your way, and in doing so, you build a better life. That's what built America. I get it. There's some people just don't quite get there. But you know what? It's a wonderful thing about the wealthy. You know what's great about wealthy? The wealthy produce products and jobs. A lot of people who didn't get wealthy have a job because of the wealthy. And you want to punish them? Because if you punish them, they make less. And if they make less, the production reduces, you have less product, and you have less jobs. That's what happened in the Soviet Union. That's what has happened in all of these communist dictatorships. The store shelves will be empty because production went down. Because there was no innovation. There's nobody out there to produce. The government sure doesn't do a good job at it. And that's what Delta and every other company flirting with this ideology needs to remember before they trade freedom for fairness and end up with neither. And it's this equality. We all need to be exactly the same equity garbage that's pushing this. This is what the Democrats have been pushing. The WNBA is another one. This is another example. Did you see their All-Star game a few weeks ago? They have officially entered the realm of economic fantasy, just like the women's soccer team did, the Olympic soccer team did. At the WNBA All-Star game, the players on both teams wore shirts that read, "Pay us what you owe us." Now, it's a slogan that sounds more like a protest chant than a business model. The message is they want a fair share of league revenue. And I have no problem with people saying, hey, I'm working hard. I should get a bigger share. Negotiate that, fight for that, whatever. I get that. That's fine. But let me tell you something, ladies. Fair doesn't mean equal. It means earned. Let's look at the facts. The WNBA pulls in about $200 million a year. And they're saying, well, we should get what the NBA gets. The NBA doesn't pull in $200 million a year. The NBA pulls in $13 billion a year. That's not a rounding error. That's a canyon. That's a gap so wide that even Rosie O'Donnell could fit through it. Yet WNBA players are demanding the same revenue split as NBA players, about 50%. Currently, they get about 9.3%. And they're calling that unfair. Well, how come we don't get half? They get half. It's not unfair. It's reality. You don't get paid based on what you want. You get paid based on what you generate, number one. The NBA has decades of history. Global reach, fan base that fills arenas and drives billion-dollar media deals. The WNBA is growing, yes. Caitlin Clark, the white girl, she's part of the reason for that. And they go after her. Also, hey man, she's your revenue driver right now. You should be coddling that revenue driver. But just because you have growth, you're doing better than you used to, it is growing, WNBA, that doesn't mean you've arrived. It means you're on the way. And until you get there, you don't get to rewrite the rules of economics. And this is the same tired argument we saw in women's soccer. Equal pay, they shouted, but the revenue wasn't equal. The attendance wasn't equal. The sponsorships weren't equal. And guess what? The expenses are not equal. Stadiums don't offer discounts because your league is smaller. Travel costs don't shrink because your ratings are lower. You want NBA level pay, you need NBA level revenue. Well, yeah, but 50%, what does it matter? We'll still get, yeah, but the cost doesn't change. The costs are still high. You're not making enough to get that big of a percentage after all the cost of doing business is taken care of. It's the raise of the minimum wage at fast food restaurants in California all over again. When McDonald's has to pay more in taxes, corporate taxes, and more in minimum wage, they don't pay that. The cost of production went up. Therefore, they've got to figure out a way to adjust that. People get fired, people get laid off, people get less hours, prices go up, quality goes down, quantity goes down a little bit. Cost doesn't change, and when it goes up, it has to be taken care of somehow. You can't have those wages yet, ladies. You want the NBA level revenue, then you're going to end up like Stephen Colbert. More money going out than coming in. That's not empowerment, that's insolvency. Now, I'm all for growth. I'm all for opportunity. But you don't build a successful league by demanding a bigger slice of a pie you haven't baked. You build it by earning it, by driving ticket sales, merchandise, viewership, sponsorships. And when the numbers justify it, the pay will follow. Until then, slogans like pay us what you owe us are just noise. Because in the real world, pay isn't owed, it's earned. Redistribution of wealth, once again. This is what the left is all about. This is what they practice. This is what they preach. And it fails every time. And now we have a president of the United States, President Trump, is saying, your model fails, this model works, and now he's proven it, and they won't admit it. DouglasVGibbs.com, DouglasVGibbs.com. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, my friends. God bless you. Thanks for spending the time with me. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.